All right, welcome to the conversation on the TYT Network. You know that Donald Trump has received a huge percentage of the evangelical vote. In fact, I talk about this on the show all the time. Back in 2016, he got 81% of the white evangelical vote, and they had an astounding, record-breaking, unbelievable 85% voter turnout. So they definitively decided the 2016 election. That is certainly part of the conversation we're going to have with Katharine Stewart, who joins us now, who's the author of The Power Worshippers, a book that has come out recently. And it connects Trump and the evangelical movement and Christian nationalism. And I want to understand about those connections better, and I want to understand the movement better. So, Katharine, thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, no problem. So, first of all, as you write about in the book, Donald Trump in his personal life appears to be the exact antithesis of what evangelical right-wing leaders have been asking for in public life for as long as I've been alive. In fact, if he was a Democrat, they might think that he's the Antichrist. So why are they backing this guy that doesn't match anything they have ever said about morality?
A lot of it has to do with judges. The movement derives a lot of its strategic direction from the right-wing legal advocacy groups like the Alliance Defending Freedom, Liberty Counsel. Look, to date, Trump has appointed something like 192 justices to the federal judiciary. That's over 22% of the federal judiciary. So they know that they're advancing a lot of their agenda through the courts, and they know that by appointing, getting behind someone like Trump, he's going to give them what they want on that level. Another reason is because a lot of the funders of the movement, the sort of plutocratic funders of the movement, have allied themselves with a kind of hyper-conservative, almost libertarian wing of the Republican Party. And so they feel like he's going to enact economic policies that are favorable to their pocketbooks. But, there's something else about Trump that appeals to this movement. He's more of an authoritarian leader. The movement doesn't really broadly support modern democracy, the Constitution as it was written, or sort of representative democracy. They seem to have very little respect for the two-party system. So there's something in the sort of autocratic style, authoritarian style that Trump represents that appeals to this movement.
Look, I'll probably be harsher than you in this assessment. I don't know, you might not. It's not normally what you get out of a host, but so now there's so many different angles to go here. Number one is to find out what their true intent is, because they told us their intent through all these years was family values. We really want to make sure we keep families together and loving and devoted and et cetera, and no improprieties. And they were so concerned about Bill Clinton because of the immorality he brought into the Oval Office, et cetera. So now it's super obvious that that was a lie, that they don't care about that at all. Not one smidge, couldn't care less. Donald Trump has had numerous mistresses. They've been porn stars. He's paid hush money to them, had sex with them while his wife was pregnant. I can go on and on and on. The
other thing is, I think they've completely blown their credibility on the idea that they support the family. I mean, they've sided with economic reactionaries that undermine the supports that families often need in order to be successful, and they've waged war on many of the health and social tools that family need to thrive, most visibly family planning. And as you mentioned on the issue of integrity of personal leadership, I mean, there's not much to say. You just point to Trump, and it's the definition of hypocrisy.
Yeah, so then that gets to the question of what do they actually care about? So they said morality, but it's definitive now, 100% proven that they don't care about morality at all, not 1%. So then what is it? Is it just that they think, no, abortion is more important than personal family values or personal values at all, or any degree of morality, personal morality? No, abortion and what other issues? Or is that a front for their true intent? So
Well, when
appropriate.
leaders of the movement are talking to the rank and file, or when they're talking to pastors, conservative pastors, about the issues that they should communicate to their rank and file in order to get them to vote for the hyper-conservative political candidates the movement favors, it's all abortion all the time. But when they're talking to their political allies and their funders, they're advocating for a wide range of policy positions, economic policy, social policy, and foreign policy. So this is really a political movement that sort of hits home the fact that it's not just about the so-called culture war issues like abortion or same-sex marriage. They're really, a lot of what they're advocating is about money, about how they say the Bible favors low taxes for the rich, or no taxes, how the Bible favors minimal regulation of government, or no regulation of the minimal regulation for the environment. So they really kind of want to shift the country in a different direction in terms of our international alliances, in terms of our economic policy. They've already contributed to sort of hollowing out of the social safety net, and the policies that they advocate have intensified economic inequality to the point that, as many sociologists and economists have pointed out, we're really at kind of a record levels of economic inequality in this country. And interestingly, that precisely is what makes it so much harder for families to thrive.
Yeah. So, Katharine, and I get a distinction that you make from time to time that's very important for the audience to understand. There's a difference between the followers and the leaders. So the followers probably believed the stuff about morality when it was used as a talking point. I don't know if they still believe it, because there's a lot of cognitive dissonance that happens. The followers, the actual people who vote, an overwhelming majority of these right-wing evangelicals believe that abortion is a massive issue. And they believe a couple of other things. But their leaders use that to brainwash them.
So when I was researching my book, I went to all these right-wing policy meetings and gatherings and values voter summits. At the last one, Tony Perkins, who's the head of the sort of Family Research Council, one of the big right-wing policy groups, he gets up on stage with three enormous baby cribs, cribs filled with baby hats. And basically it's sort of a stunt. And he's communicating to people, this is the only issue that matters. But we have to remember, when Roe versus Wade was passed in 1973, a majority of Republican Protestants supported it. Let's not forget that Ronald Reagan signed the most liberal abortion law in 1967. Even Betty Ford hailed Roe v. Wade as a great, great decision. And Barry Goldwater supported abortion law liberalization early in his career. But so what happened is that over time, leaders of the movement recognized a sort of earlier version of the movement, a sort of intellectual predecessor called the New Right, recognized that they needed an issue that was going to unite conservative Protestants, fundamentalists, and conservative Catholics, and some others. And they, went through a laundry list of to see if they sort of consider different issues, and they sort of settled on abortion as an issue that could kind of make it work. And over time, pro-choice or nuanced voices were purged from the Republican Party. So what we're seeing today is a kind of almost like a new religion. It's almost like a pro-life religion, because they know if they can get people to sign on to that one issue, they can control their vote.
They don't actually care about life. I mean, I give you dozens of examples, but Sheriff Clark in Milwaukee let a woman who was delivering, he wouldn't get her medical help. She was chained up, and her baby died in delivery. Not one Republican cared. Not one religious leader cared. If you were pro-life, that's what you argued for your whole life. The followers actually believe it, because that's the whole point of brainwashing and propaganda. The leaders don't believe any of it. They're total frauds. So now, then that goes to, what do the leaders actually want?
Believe it or not, access to public money. I mean, this is really obvious in the field. I'll just give you one example of education where some of these legal advocacy groups that I mentioned earlier have placed a case before the Supreme Court involving a school district in Montana. There's the religiously motivated voucher advocates who want even more voucher funding than they're already getting. So America spends something like $500 billion every year on public K through 12. And these religiously motivated voucher advocates know that if they can open the floodgates more, the money's going to flow without end. So a lot of what and right now it goes even further. 8 federal agencies under the Trump administration are renegotiating how they can access public money to deliver services and essential services in many instances, and maintain a license to discriminate, maintain discrimination in hiring. And if the money is delivered in certain ways, then they can actually even mandate that people attend church services if they're going to receive those services, or can be proselytized to. So I think the role of the demand for access to public money is a really underestimated part of this movement. And as we know, when some of that money flows into sort of religious, sort of conservative religious organizations, a certain amount of it sort of goes up the food chain into sort of right-wing policy groups and sort of the political infrastructure of the movement. I mean, the movement has invested for decades in all the tools of modern political campaigns. They've invested in data, media, messaging, a really substantial get out the vote machine.
Katharine Stewart, thank you so much for joining us. It's called The Power Worshippers. Everybody check out the book, and their connection to Trump is fascinating and scary, because if you wanted to have someone lead an anti-democratic movement, well, boy, it looks like they got the right guy. So we're going to find out if it further succeeds in 2020. Katharine, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.